And this, oh, got it here. And this section actually includes not only notary public administrators, but commissioning authorities, professional notary associations, and other governmental and private industry entities that have an interest in the office of notary public. Now, in addition to being the president of this group, Mike is also with Georgia Superior Court Clerks Cooperative Authority. Imagine how long that business card must be. And anyway, and he's going to talk to us today about the upcoming NASS convention and a panel he's putting together. And we're just really happy to have you join our group today, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And I appreciate y'all having me. So Nancy has become somewhat of a regular at our conferences and contributes greatly. One of the most knowledgeable people I know in the field, and is always willing just to do anything that we throw at her. So I appreciate that. So the the National Association of Secretaries of State is exactly what it sounds like. And back in 1998, a small group of secretaries decided that since they were overseeing, most of them oversee the notary process in their states, that their administrators need a place to come together and discuss things and that kind of thing. It really started out as a simple dinner gathering of about eight people, and has grown to what it is now. Now, for many years, as I joke, we could have met in a closet because it's a small group, and then there wasn't great interest. There wasn't a lot going on as far as substantive changes in the notary industry. But in the last decade, certainly the last 5 years, we've seen those numbers greatly increase because of the advent of the remote online notary process. And so at the conference coming up July 7 to 10 in Baton Rouge, so we have our own agenda. So we meet as part of NASS, but we set our own agenda. We meet concurrently while they're having, their secretaries stuff. Sometimes we do come together as general sessions, but so one specific session that we had the idea was, and I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to find the document. Let me put that down. Come on, bear with me 1 second. Oh shoot, I thought I closed that out. Let me move this in PDF. Here we go. Is this idea that we give solution providers some time to share their experiences with the remote notary process, because naturally we spend a lot of time addressing issues from the other side that administrators are seeing. We don't have notaries as members; they have their own thing, so it's strictly administrative. But so these are the session topics that we are going to hold in Baton Rouge. We always do a roll call, and that's to allow members to speak, and not just members, but if for instance, if you're in the room, you can talk a little bit about what you do, who you represent, how the notary process is involved with your company or as an individual. We always, this next one, State of the States, a gentleman from the National Notary Association who is amazingly bright, always does a legislative update for us. And as a matter of fact, while I was here, I did kind of a mini version for the folks here that strictly that Bill Anderson from National Notary basically did for me. And then the next session, the electronic apostille process is the next big thing in the notary industry. Authentication, not a word, authentication of documents destined for foreign countries. That is, the law comes from, or the treaty among the United States and right now about 115 other countries, streamlines the commercial process, the transfer of documents across international lines. And then we have a session where we're going to talk about registering and approving platforms. So some states have taken the stance that they don't really want to get involved in approving software or platforms related to the Remote Act for their notaries. Some states are hands-on. There's an approval process. So we'll talk about that. This next session I'm really interested in is the advent of mobile driver's licenses. Now the idea is not new, but the fact that we're starting to see more states accept these and produce these in relation to the identity of the signers of the documents, because some of you may be notaries, but there's really two big cornerstones, if that's possible, of the process. And one is certainly physical or appearance of the signer, and then also proving their identity to the notary. So this session will be about how mobile driver's licenses become more acceptable in that process. We always have something about education. This one about muscling up around education. The state of Montana does an amazing job. They're one of the first ones to really get into the Remote Act. As a matter of fact, one of our board members with NPA, Lori Ham, is having her own state conference as I speak in the state of Montana. And so we'll talk about that. We're going to develop an implementation guide for states to implement the remote process. We did something similar a few years ago for the electronic process. The difference between those is the electronic process, which is now called IPEN, whatever, is in, yeah. So that's been around for 20 years. So meaning that you still require physical presence, in-person appearance of the signer, but you just use different tools, use electronic tools, use electronic seal, electronic signature. And then this next one, I think, is more interest to y'all, would be that says Ron in the solution provider's eye. So what we really had the idea was, not a specific presentation, but to allow solution providers that are in attendance kind of drive the discussion about, what is it that you're seeing as you interact with states, and notaries as well. But as far as, some I was mentioned before, like, some states require the approval of the platform, some don't, and that type of thing. So if any of you are interested to come to Baton Rouge, we will meet. The conference is the 7th to the 10th. Technically, we're meeting for 2.5 days on the 8th, 9th, and 10th. And this session is right now scheduled for the Sunday morning of the July 10th. And you'd be welcome to come and come for the whole conference. You've never come to a NASS conference, but we really think this will benefit, hopefully you, but it certainly will benefit the administrators in the room. And also, even though we do meet independently in the same hotel as the secretaries, a lot of times we do have secretary staff members that aren't directly involved with the notary process, or secretaries that we know will drop in and check out and see what's going on. And then we always end up with a round table, which is, we use that time for anything like if there was a topic we didn't get to in a specific session or that type of thing. But it's a hard working group. We're small. I mean, honestly, if we had everyone, we have 50 states, but then we have on average probably right now about 45 members, and that's a combination of state administrators and those in the private sector like Nancy. But this is my invitation to anyone that would like to come to Baton Rouge. If you're interested, on the NASS website, it's nass.org, nass.org. The registration information is there. The hotels are really cheap. I did mine last week, and it's like $107. I mean, I'm like, they're almost giving them away. And Baton Rouge hopefully is not too difficult for most people to get there. And I always look forward to having a conference in a capital city as well. I mean, the big cities are nice, but a lot of times, the conference city is not the capital, and so and they always plan, some type of interesting social events in the evening, and I'm sure there'll be a visit to the Capitol building and some kind of reception and all that. So again, if you're interested or have any questions, you certainly can reach out to me or Nancy, and So that's really why Nancy was so nice to offer me the opportunity to spend a few minutes with y'all.
Well, I'm so glad you came. And for those of you that maybe haven't gone to a NASS convention and been part of this NPA group, it really is it's like Mike said, it's not a big, huge group, which is why it's so, I think, efficient, because you get to talk with everybody in that group and you get to exchange ideas and share best practices and kind of talk about where have you been, where you're going. And, the last one that we had last August, Maine was in there and they were getting ready to write their RON rules. So we were actually able, the secretary was in there and we were actually able to kind of talk about some of the different states, what worked and what didn't work. And I think that really helped them as they got ready to draft their rules as well. So I would hope that our vendor caucus group and any others, it's really a great conference. I don't think you would regret going for one moment. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. If anybody has any comments or questions now, certainly can throw them out there.
Hey, Mike, it's Kevin Quayle. I actually am not a vendor. I work for Wells, but part of ESRA. I think the education part you touched on is key. I wonder if there's any, but I think there's yet another layer of education that needs to go beyond the notarial groups or even the counties. It's really the folks that are pulling together documents to be notarized, whether it's title companies or legal firms or other groups that are, putting the notary acknowledgement on a document. Is there any thoughts on how the states can help educate their own constituents on how to use RON, not just from the state perspective, but from the origination of the documents perspective?
There always is that overriding thought about education, I think. And then this session, Nancy, you're involved in this, right? This one session.
Yeah, and so I think that's an interesting. We hadn't really thought about that, but that could be a part of the discussion, certainly. And it is. We're going to kind of talk about in this session. We're going to kind of talk about a lot of those things that you just mentioned, but what seems to be working and all of that. So that could be maybe an idea that we could certainly bring up and discuss some. I could get with you after and you give me some ideas on that. Or yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because I don't, I say the average notary. I'm a notary. I would say I'm an average notary. I don't know as more states roll out or authorize the Remote Act, how many average notaries will actually use remote process? I don't know. I think typically it's going to be people like what you talked about. It's going to be a lot in the lending industry, legal industry, and that type of thing. And so, yeah, we're always looking for ideas for educating notaries.
Great.
And honestly, and since we're small, and most of these sessions are driven by members. We do have occasionally, an outside speaker or something like that, but typically we tackle it on our own because we're the ones that are dealing with it on a daily basis. So, and it's there's states. I don't know. I mentioned before. There's 41 states have now either have authorized or has already gone into effect legislation going into effect, or the bill has been passed and it will go into effect sometime in the near future. Unfortunately, in my state of Georgia, we are an attorney closing state, and our bill got defeated. And I won't go into all the politics of that. So it'll happen sometime in our state, and it's kind of sad because we are one of the larger states, and so anyway, that's the way politics falls sometimes.
Well, thank you, Mike. Anybody else have any questions for Mike or comments or suggestions?
Yeah. Nancy, if you wanted to share my email through,
I will.
Feel free to
Jim
do that.
and we'll put it on there and get it out to everybody. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, I've got this lunch thing I'm going to go to now, but I really appreciate you offering me this opportunity, and it's good to see all you guys, and hopefully we'll maybe see some of you in Baton Rouge.
We'll see you then, Mike. Have a safe flight home tomorrow and a nice day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Great. Well, thank you so much for Mike participating in that. It looks like he has already left.